Well, I was more reading an article that's saying that some of the top tech guys wanted to replace smartphones with brain chips. Yeah, I'll stick to my smartphone.
Yeah.
You don't trust the tech bros? I mean, what problems has there been with technology in the last, few years that would make you not want to do this? I can't think of one.
The Mechanicus of servitors, I don't want to be one.
Welcome to Preferred Enemies, the Warhammer 40k podcast, and those great things sometimes come only once a year. I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
Dennis.
And Richard.
And yeah, this is our coverage of the Midwest Conquest 2025. Now, you may notice there's some slight sound differences between this and our past Midwest Conquest coverage, and the fact that there is not the sound of us being in an echoey hall and people moving things in the background. And that's because when we went to record our live coverage after show, our soundboard, which has served us well for the past, dozen years or so.
One or two.
Yeah, decided not to work properly. So I've got to take it through a full set of diagnostics, burn the right incense, rub the proper unguents on it. I probably rubbed the wrong unguents on it, and that was what caused the problem. But anyway,
we were only using it once a year. I mean, it probably needed.
Yeah, I probably should have done a full tech check anyway, but that's fine. We're a week later. We're all back home in our various locations, recording as we normally do online. But that doesn't mean we can't cover the event itself. And this, I think, is this the biggest Midwest Conquest? Like, if you take all the events into account?
Yes. In total, we had 4 events that all had at least 20 plus players. I think the total was like 140 or something like that. So it would make it the biggest event. We did have one year where we had over 120 in just the GT, but yeah, this is the largest total event we had.
Right, because I think with the GT that we had that event.
Yeah, it was just that one event.
Yeah. Whereas this year there were, I think, 71 people who actually showed up to play. As always, you're going to have a few no-shows. Mm-hmm. But 71 players in the GT, 23 in the narrative?
Yeah. 23 in the narrative. We had 24 sign up. We got told that one of them had his boss called him in the Friday before. Yeah. So that's the only reason we didn't have all 24.
Which, fair, I suppose. If your job comes first, you got to have the money to play, whatever.
Yeah.
I think there were 36 signups for Age of Sigmar. I think they had 29 show. And Bolt Action, I know, filled up at 20 people?
I think 24, is what 24. They had. But yeah.
So, I mean, a great turnout to the point where I think if you remember from one of our past episodes, signups had to be called off. We had to close registration because there were physically no more tables available. That room was pretty much at capacity. And it was awesome to see that many people across the hall. That was just fantastic to see all these games going on at once. But we are mostly here. We will talk a bit about the GT and the results from that, but we're mostly here to talk about the narrative because that's the event we participated in. Me as a player, you two as organizers. So before we get into my player experience, Kevin and Dennis, what was it like running the narrative this year, especially with a much larger crowd?
It was good.
I would say...
All right, we can round it up.
End of
good
podcast.
episode, everybody.
All right.
I think it was different because one of the things we try to do, which makes, I think, ours unique, is the command assist system.
Yes.
And as we get bigger, we want to make sure that we have extra characters and Titans for each person or each table to keep it kind of balanced. And as we're growing, that was a little bit of a challenge. Although, Kevin, I think you said it was a great way for you to start using up your game day or the other special character models that you get.
Yeah, because I have, as we talked about before, I have hobby ADHD, so I collect a lot of models that I think is like, oh, this is cool. I like this. I like this one. Even though I don't play this army, I'm going to pick this model up because I want to paint it someday. And it gave me an excuse to, knock out 6 or 7 different character models and kind of get a good variety out there. And I think, I think it's worthwhile just to kind of discuss how we do the command assists and like the Titan assists in general, since it is different than other events. So over the course of the 2 days, we play 4 games, starting with an escalating 1,000-point game, 1,500, 2,000 points. And then on Sunday, we play a team game where everybody brings 4,000 points per team. Usually that's 4 people bringing 1,000 points, but it gives us flexibility if we have an odd number where somebody can bring more. And then just play a giant team game that lasts all day. And it kind of gives us that feel of like a big capstone apocalypse game without people having to worry about playing with like APOC rules and stuff like that. But the gimmick we do with the command assist is that over the course of the event, as you complete various missions and win various games, you can either get a command assist, which is a HQ model that can join your army for free, or a Titan assist, which can kind of help boost up your army if you're falling behind a little bit. So, various knights. This year I brought my chitin along. Next year we're going to have other big models. I picked up, I'm working out this weekend.
Storm Surge and Morkanot, right? You're hearing it here first?
I mean, yeah, like I have a Storm Surge on my in the case that I'm looking at right now, so I can paint one of those up for next year as well. Just to give people, it's it's a way for us to paint up these models and kind of like forge a narrative of like, okay, in this specific narrative event, there was a Death Watchtower that was trying to basically stop an Orc Wa happening in this system. So we had various Inquisitors and various Orc characters that were participating that could kind of be free agents and join factions and kind of like help sell some of the narrative mission. So it's a really cool way to let people play with models they don't normally get to play with. It's always fun when someone gets to play with a knight that maybe they haven't played with one before. And it also allows me to do cool modeling conversion stuff. Like one of the Chaos Knights that I came up with is a Defiler like chassis. So it's got like the Defiler claws and stuff like that, and then it's got the Knight setting on top of it, which seems like a cool thing that the Dark Mechanicum would actually come up with. It allows us to kind of tweak rules and kind of do things that we want. We brought in like the 4 of us as characters and gave us old school rules from previous editions, and
No, we have the
like
preferred enemy rule.
Yeah. So a way for us to kind of get creative with these characters and modeling, and also kind of sell the narrative by adding these characters in throughout the events.
And I guess the main way, since I'll lead into how we did it the past 2 years, is if you were winning games, each time you won, you got to select a command assist. So you're winning. Okay, this guy sees that, acknowledges it, and he'll come help out. And the Titans are there as a balancing thing. If you're losing, they say, oh, upper management, or not management. But the people in charge say, oh, yeah, you're not doing too well here. Titans, go shore up this line. So that's kind of how we did that, to try and make feel like, because it's not fun getting curb stomped. So if you've been curb stomped, well, here, have a Titan. You might not get curb stomped this time. And then we always want to balance the tables to just get all of those minis out for the final game. Mm-hmm. And originally we talked about just doing if you won and then assign the Titans out for the last one. But it turned into, well, it's more fun to have everybody have something. So I think that's going to be one of our goals, is to keep growing that number of assists, so that way if we grow players, we will still have enough to cover that day 2 big game to where everybody gets something. But to answer the original question, Rob, that's, I think, the only thing that really changed up for it, because designing missions, which we just pulled from Nachman, or looking at the special rules, we just pulled from Nachman. And I like to Nachman. I'll just get, and who knows, maybe when the next Crusade book comes out, if we like it, that's where we'll pull missions from as well. But that is all just standard 1v1, or in this case 4v4, which uses the bigger table mission style. So that design really didn't change. I do think, and this is my own thing, of we had to modify some of it because, I mean, the victor bonuses we kind of set based on the assists, but the Watchtower Wa and the hero villain are things that I did design, and there's some things that could be improved and done better. Because and we've mentioned this, how the narrative works is we build 3 tracks for you to go on. One is the victor track. Did you win the game? And we've kind of explained what the benefits for that are. You get the command assist, or if you lose a bunch, you'll get the Titan assist. And then there's the hero villain track, where we just come up with things for your warlord itself to accomplish. And if they do, you get points for that. So that's a separate track, and we try and make those be different from the things. They might go along, they might not go along. I mean, but you have to decide. And I think it went well this year, because the first year we did that, it was a single track, and you got either plus points for hero or minus points for villain, and that just got confusing for everybody. So we said, you pick a path, go with it. And then the other thing we did is, in the past, it was a hidden, air quote, hidden thing that you had to remember about. And, well, people forgot, or they kept on coming up to ask us. So that's why we put them on the mission sheet. So we're like, hey, we need to make sure people know what it is so they can see what they're gunning for.
Yeah.
And then the third one was Watchtower Wa, or I guess Kevin was calling it Protection and Destruction. And that was just how the narrative story and the flow of that was going. And then putting them all 3 together in context is kind of determining the overall what's happening. Because the first 2 missions, I will say, the Watchtower ones were much easier to complete than the WA ones.
Yep.
This was halfway on purpose, and halfway because I wanted to see what could happen. So, but when the numbers started rolling in, I was like, oh my. Because I think in the first game, Watchtower had 79 to the WA's 9.
Oof.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because that first mission, if I remember right, was the Watchtower gets points for every unit destroyed.
Yes.
Whereas, like, the WA got points for being, I think, in their opponent's deployment zone at the end of the game.
Yep.
Correct.
And there were a couple tablings, which if there's a table, well, that's a lot of points to one side and not so. I need to balance that more for the players, but for the narrative part, I'm like, well, I wanted the Watchtower to defend really hard, so they did. It was just
they did. Well,
a little bit more than I thought.
I remember in my game, I was playing a Tyranid player who had a Biovore who kept making spore mines, and of course those are units. Oh gosh, so,
yes.
Yeah, it's like I could just keep cranking out kills.
And then in the second game, it was also Watchtower 47 to WAS 7. But Watchtower just, I think, had to move to the other side. I don't remember fully. But WA had 2 battle shock units. And unless you're building or playing against something that distinctively just tries to battle shock you, it's hard. Or if you get you're more likely to have a dead unit than a battle shock unit. So that one was also exceedingly hard. But then it evened out when they were kind of very similar. So that's something that I need to play with. But at least it made it to where the Watchtower kept on doing their objectives and driving the WA back. But the WA just kept coming because, well, they were also winning games. And in the end, like after the first game, it was close because we had, I guess, one tie. That's right. So here's an interesting thing. I'm side railing. Rounds 1, 2, and 3, there was a tie every round. Different people, but there was a tie every round, which I find interesting. So with our 12 tables in round 1, WA had 6 wins and Watchtower had 5. So very, very close, even though the Watchtower totally dominated on their point. So that's why Watchtower drove them back. And then the second round, Watchtower 7 wins to the WA's 3. So, okay, Watchtower just obliterated. And then after rounds 1 and 2, we put in the place the one faction will be the defenders and choose the tables, and the opponents can pick their opponents. Second round, we'll swap them. And then third and fourth was determined on who was winning.
Yep.
So since Watchtower won so much, they got to be the defenders for round 3. And round 3, oh my gosh, WA came back. They won 7 of the 10 matches. So that made it to be pretty close overall on like the win. So that's why the WA just like, okay, well we might have, and also third round was when the Watchtower WA points were also even or pretty close. So it's like, okay, they fought their way back. Okay, time for these big games. And the funny part of the big games, Watchtower was at 15 wins and WA was at 16. And Watchtower won 2 of those big games, WA won 1. So we ended at 17-17. Hooray for ties.
Exactly. The most 40K result ever. A lot of things died and nothing was accomplished.
Oh, it's a standard 40K narrative.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys played it out that way. So that's why we got to say, this is what we'll do next year. We'll continue this with just probably some escalation.
Yeah, and I appreciate that because that means I don't have to come up with another setting for next year. So
I have plenty of setting ideas, Kevin.
But yeah, no, it was very fun. It seemed like everyone was involved, was having a good time with it. Everyone was in the spirit of it. I like having the escalating games because it allows you to switch up your list a little bit. You're not playing the same army list exactly 3 times in a row or 4 times in a row. You're allowed to bring in different things, switch it up, kind of tailor your list. Like if there's an opponent you're playing, or if you're playing the bigger game, you can bring bigger things. So I don't know. I liked it. I think it seemed like it went pretty well.
And Kevin, you mentioned that. I will say there's one thing that, because this was a narrative style, I wanted to have at least one asymmetric mission in there, which in this case was game 3. And I thought, well, let's just have games 1 and 2 be get your feet wet, let's get going. Game 3, switch it up. We had so many questions about that one, so I think part of it is just people aren't used to asymmetric missions. Part of it is game 3, people were tired because we'd been playing all day. So I might move that earlier to like maybe game 2 or something, because I still want a easier game 1, get your feet wet. This is fine. But then maybe throw in that and then ease back on the third one. But we'll see.
The other thing that was nice about this being narrative and like kind of escalating points is, even though we had an odd number, we only needed Ringer for 1 game. The first game at 1,000 points, it was just easy for me to grab an army and play a game as a Ringer. But after that, we had enough points and enough people available to just be like, okay, you do a team game, game. And then on the finale, it was, this team of 3 people, you bring 4,000 points total. So
Kevin, did you actually play? I heard you got tabled really badly.
I did play. So here's the great thing about playing World Eaters as a Ringer army is your play style is indistinguishable from when you're trying to win, because it's just run forward and get shot.
It's the only option you have, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so it was like I charged 4th into Flamers, and that went about as well as you would expect charging into Flamers would go. So,
not well.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's a Ringer. I'm not trying to tank the game, but I'm also not playing as strategically as I could. But I honestly don't know that if I was playing this as a perfectly strategic game, I don't know if there's much else I could have done. Flamers are the bane of a melee army.
I will second that statement.
Especially magic flamers. And the other thing that helped was his Mutilith Vortex Beast one-shotted my Demon Prince and my Mauler Fiend on consecutive turns. So it's oh, okay, well, this thing just and it's D6 plus 6 wounds, I think, and he rolled 12 and 10. And it's oh, well, okay, so they're just dead. Cool.
So you didn't need those things for your army, right?
No, they're not linchpins in the army or anything like that. Yeah, so it was a fun game, but it was just that's a bad matchup, But it was fun. It was still fun to play.
So yeah, mission 1, and these are my mission sheets from participating. So mission 1 was a hammer and anvil deployment, fighting long ways across the table, which I'm playing Blood Angels, so that was fun. But because
this is the one Kevin did World Eaters on,
right? Yeah. And so that one was the couple of objectives: seize ground, which is hold objectives up to 3 points, and you were doing, because you said Nachman Gauntlet, you were doing the Nachman Gauntlet scoring, where you're only scoring 1 point per thing, with scores being relatively low rather than the 100-point style.
And that matched up with, because I wanted that to compare with the hero villain points and the other Watchtower WA points, so they all kind of could sync up, which is why I liked having those low numbers there.
Yeah, that was standard thing. 1 point per objective, up to 3. There were 5 on the table, 1 in each deployment zone, and then 3 across the middle line. And then another one, breakthrough push. At the end of the turn, player whose turn it is scores 1 victory point if 1 or more units from their army, not excluding battle shocked units, is wholly within the opponent's deployment zone. And if they're battle line, they're worth even more. So those were the main mission objectives. And then for the warlord objectives, for tracking whether you were heroic or villainous, the heroic task was hold the line. Warlord gains a point at the end of your turn that they are alive and in your deployment zone. Or villainous, oversee all. Warlord gains a point at the end of your turn. They are alive and within 6 inches of the center of the board. I will say that one was extremely easy for me to score because I just set my captain right there on the objective in my deployment zone, and he did not move for the entire game.
But to the point, your warlord then was not participating really in the battle.
Yes.
This is true. This is very true.
So that was a small detriment to your forces because, well, one of my better characters is just hanging out here.
Yeah, fair. And then the faction objectives were Watchtower task. So for the Death Watch side, thin their ranks, a point at the end of the battle for each opponent's unit killed. Yeah, that one we cleaned up on. Then the WA task was break their lines, point at the end of the battle for each of your units in the opponent's deployment zone. Those two things are directly counter to each other. So, yeah, I'm not surprised the WA didn't do great on that one.
I mean, if the WA had been tabling the Watchtower, then they could get everything over there.
Sure. But
yeah.
It didn't go that way. No, I know.
Right. Mission 2 was the supply raid. And this was at the start of the first battle round. The players randomly select 3 different objectives in no man's land, which are all, this is Dawn of War deployment, so long edges facing each other, 5 objectives lined across the middle, and it was really easy to determine which ones were random because we basically just rolled 3 dice and re-roll 6s, but those are the ones that will disappear.
Yep.
And just track them in order. And fortunately, I had my old preferred enemies objective markers, so I replaced them with 3, 4, and 5, so we knew which turns everything was going to disappear. So that was very handy. And basically, the objectives are worth more as the game goes on. So round 2 and 3, they're worth a point each. Round 4, they're worth 2 points each. Round 5, when there's only 2 left, they're worth 4 points each. And then the heroic task was, and actually these were both the same. Heroic task, lead the charge. You warlord gains a point at the end of their turn if they're on an objective.
Yeah, there were a lot of warlords that were getting killed early, which is, I think, why the WA did poorly on this one.
And then faction objectives, Watchtower task, set an ambush, a point at the end of the game for each unit wholly within a terrain feature, or the WA task, cause a ruckus, 1 point at the end of the game for each opponent unit that's battle shocked. And yeah, that one especially if you don't have an army that has a way to manipulate battle shock rolls, that can be very tricky to pull off. And then mission 3, retrieval. This is that the asymmetric one you were talking about.
yeah.
I don't know if it was entirely. It's kind of asymmetric. There are 6 objectives on the board, and you're trying to find which one is the real objective. So one of your units gets within range of an objective marker, and you perform an action. At the end of the action, at the end of your turn, you roll a d6. You add 1 to the result if you're the defender. So I guess there's the asymmetric aspect. And then adding 1 to the result if, for every search that's been done by either player. And if you get a 6 or more, you found the real objectives, which was an informant. And then you remove all the other objectives, and now that is the objective that's worth points. Every time a player completes the search, you get a victory point. If you found the informant, you score a victory point. Then once the informant is found, that objective is worth 3 points.
Yes. And all the objectives are in the attacker's zone, which is why the defender gets the +1 to the rolls, because they have to get there.
Yeah. And then the heroic and villainous task, surround and secure. The warlord gains 1 point at the end of each of your turns that they are wholly within the opponent's deployment zone. Which is a little bit easier if you're the defender, because the attacker has a much larger deployment zone.
Yes.
Yeah.
But because what track you were going on wasn't tied to whether you're attacker or defender, it works equally well for both players. It just depends on which side you're on. And honestly, it's not hard to get your warlord into the if you're the attacker, it's not hard to get into the defender's deployment zone.
The catch, though, for the attacker is if they wanted to do that, they would have to give up being where all the action is.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the Watchtower task for the Death Watch side: surround the foe. Surround the foe. 1 point at the end of the game for each table quarter you have a unit wholly in. You must be 6 inches away from all other table quarters. The Waz task was rally together. 1 point at the end of the game for each unit you have wholly within 6 inches of the center of the board. So those were day one's missions. And I guess I'll go ahead and talk now about my experience with day one.
Sure.
Day one, my first round playing 1,000 points, I was playing Tyler Green's Tyranids. And Tyler had, was doing the Vanguard Assault, so everything could advance and charge. He had a number of things that could deep strike. And just playing very aggressively. And so I'm playing Blood Angels, which I normally play very aggressively, but I'm like, I'm wanting to go on the heroic track, so I got to plant my guy on my in my deployment zone. So I ended up playing kind of cagey, which worked against me for getting units into his deployment zone.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was able to get onto the objectives a bit earlier than I was, but I tabled him, I think, except for the Biovore. I think the Biovore was the only thing that was left because it was way back in his deployment zone. I just kind of, camping on his objective. I just left it alone.
And I think, Rob, this reminds me, when I was walking by, I was like, man, Rob, you're on the back foot. And you said, yeah, I'm playing KG.
Yeah.
But this also want to toss something else that we've do from time to time is the chests. We didn't talk about that, Kevin.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Because the chest that got put on Rob's table, the Tyranids were going for it. And I think, Rob, you just kept on using it as bait and shooting whatever unit went towards it.
Yep. Because they couldn't open the chest until if they started their command phase. Yeah. Yes. As opposed to last year when it was just get within 6 inches of it and immediately opens.
It was too fast last year. We wanted to make it be a back and forth this year. So, and apparently it was not exactly a back and forth, but more of a get there and get shot.
At least in this case. And so we kind of played it as, oh, look, there's a beacon that's dropped that's drawing all the Tyranids towards it, and now we'll just kill them all. He did attempt, because one thing you did borrow for this event was the surgical deep strike from Nachman Gauntlet.
We really like those rules.
We love the rule. And he tried to surgically deep strike a Malloc, and he got a 1 on the result. So and then he rolled a 6 on the deep strike mishap. So it dropped right where he wanted it, but it took I think it ended up taking 5 mortal wounds and was battle shocked and could do nothing. Which also meant it didn't get him any points for being within my deployment zone because it was battle shocked.
And it was right there doing nothing, so you had a chance to respond and shoot it.
Yes, it never got a chance to do anything.
Risk reward.
Yeah. And it wasn't it was in a particularly crowded section of the board. It's just there were just enough models within 9 inches, and he rolled just low enough that it deep struck, mishapped, and he got the worst mishaps. So.
Oof.
Yeah. But that said, even though he was tabled and I absolutely cleaned up on the Watchtower task of just killing units, because like I said, he kept making more. And I don't know if you know this, spore mines literally die if you look at them.
Yeah.
if you can shoot one, just roll to see if you hit. Okay, yeah, it's dead. All right. So yeah, I cleaned. I think I ended up getting 21 points on that one. But in the end, he ended up winning the game by 1 point because he had just because I was playing KG, he got on the objectives just 1 turn sooner than I did, and scored 1 more point than I could pull off in my game. So congratulations, Tyler, for winning that game, even though I gave him a good sound thrashing.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a very nice, close game that, sounds fun.
Yeah. Then game 2, got up to 1,500 points, and so I got to add, I believe 1,500 points. I added my Gladiator, Lancer, and Mephiston to my list. Kind of rearranged who was attached to what. And that one I was playing Alex Ford, who's one of the players at my narrative group that I run. So, we've played several times before. We're very back and forth on who wins. So we've got a pretty even record. And in this game, he was playing Deathwatch. I was playing Blood Angels. It was kind of an interesting mirror match because we both had repulsors and we both had Gladiator Lancers. And then he had a number of kill teams, and I ended up doing terrible things to him. Just besides the fact that I was effectively running 2 Dreadnoughts because I had a Brutalis Dreadnought and Mephiston, who Mephiston is survivable enough and hits hard enough. He's practically a Dreadnought in human form. Yeah. So yeah, he and a unit of assault intercessors that were running kind of alongside him, cleared out once a Spectrus kill team that he had infiltrated just a bit too close to my lines, and I got first turn on him. And then Mephiston went on to kill his Gladiator Lancer, kill another kill team of his and a Phobos lieutenant, and eventually died to the one thing he had left on the table due to a set of lucky rolls, the Goth Rocker.
Yeah.
So he had an orc rock star on his side who ended up taking out Mephiston. I managed to push him back. He had some things he could deep strike and relocate because he's playing Deathwatch, but he'd get into position and then unfortunately just whiff the shots. And so that was a pretty solid win for my side. And then the third match. Now this one was interesting because we were supposed to be escalating to 2,000 points. I never got to play my 2,000 point list this event because no, it's fine. It's fine. I volunteered, and so because as you mentioned, once you got to once the game sizes went up, it was easier to do team games, and so it's okay, well, the Watchtower side had more players, had one more player than the WA side. So who wants to volunteer to be a 2-person team and to play against a 1-person team? Or play against a single player. And so TJ Weinog, one of our patrons who we've met at several events. He was at Midwest last year. He was at the US Open in KC a couple of years ago. Great guy. Love playing alongside him, love playing against him. TJ and I teamed up, and so we were defenders, so we picked our side of the table, and then it was the time for WA players to pick their opponent, and apparently Alex had volunteered to play the team and didn't realize I was on the team again, so I got to play Alex again.
Nice.
And in that game, we ended up finding the objective, but in the end, we just could not keep him off of it, and he had just it was a slog of a game, not in a bad way, but it was lots of stuff died. Knocker. Yes, absolutely. But in the end, he was able to hold the objective, push us off of it, and also get a couple of units into the center to get extra points for the WA. So we ended up losing that one, and I think TJ managed to get a few more heroic points on that one for getting his warlord in their deployment zone, in Alex's deployment zone, just kind of hang him there for a while. Yeah, absolutely bloody fighting. In the end, Alex got revenge, and I ended the day 1-2. But first game, very, very close. Second game, overwhelming victory. Third game, a close loss. And then, while I'm in that game, I had people coming up to me, or I had somebody come up to me okay, hey, so I'm putting together a team for tomorrow. And so I got tagged into a team, and I'm fine with that. And unfortunately, I am sad I didn't get the names of, Let's see. I think
your
it was
team had Matthew, Joseph, and Seth.
Okay, Matthew, Joseph, and Seth. Yeah, because I knew Matthew, and okay, yeah, I see Joseph on the list. So yeah, Matthew, Joseph, and Seth. So it was Dark Angels, Space Wolves, Blood Angels, and Astra Militarum on our side for Game 4. And we ended up playing the 3-player team from the WA side, which was Bryant Worcester, who was playing Orcs. Bryant's also a member of our group. And he brought a Stompa to the table because why wouldn't you if you have the opportunity? Especially because with 3 players, they had 1 person at 1,000 and 2 players at 1,500. So had Bryant, had Evan Wilson, who was also playing Blood Angels. So we had a little bit of a Blood Angel on Blood Angel fight. His was leaning much more into Death Company than mine was because I didn't have any Death Company. And he had 2 large squads led by chaplains. And then Alex again, because I'm going to play the
Why
same
not?
person. Why not at that point? Well, we had to determine who was supreme at that point. We're both 1-1 against each other. So as I said, we must keep the
supreme.
Yes. And that one was a lot of fun. We had that's also the level where orbital strikes were involved. Titans started coming in. We pretty much abandoned one part of the table early on because that's where the stomp is. We're going to stay over here.
I'll do my interjection here, table. Rob. On the middle table, the Trader Guard was there, and he had pretty much not Lehman Russ's. What's the
Rogaldorns? He had. Yeah, I heard about that one. Three Rogaldorns. 3 Rogaldorns and a Rogaldorn commander was his list.
So the team he was playing against did the same thing. They had Blood Angels and Grey Knights, and they just booped from that side of the board and redeployed on the other far, far away edge.
Yeah. I was talking with Josh Weber, one of the players. He's another one from our group. And he was there with his Necrons, and he's like, I played that list round 2, or I think round 2. It's like, enough of people on our team had redeployment and teleport abilities. Yeah, we just basically abandoned that side of the board and blooped all the way over to the other side. So yeah,
I mean, I don't blame them.
No, but we kind of did the same thing with the Stompa. Our guard player Seth put some shots into it. He did end up killing the Stompa, which did end up exploding.
Oh, gosh.
Nice.
Mostly killing his own stuff, but as orcs should.
From what I also know when I was there, the orbital bombardment did kill the big mech that was buffing and fixing the Stompa.
Yeah, he was the only thing it killed, but it just left him as a smear across the side of the Stompa.
I mean, that's all you need.
Yeah.
Kill the healers first, right?
Oh. Right. And so, but we figured the big battle was going to be in the middle of the table, because that's also in this mission, objectives would flip off and on, and the ones there were more in the center that would stay on or be accessible throughout all the game. So we're like, okay, well, Watchtower got to go first, so we managed to kind of grab hold of the center and just never really let it go for the whole game. And so we're like, okay, that's where all the fighting is. We figured the flank that I was mostly on, I had some stuff in the center, but otherwise I'm on, from my point of view, the left flank of the table. And they're Alex has a couple of units there. I have a couple of units there. Matthew, who had Dark Angels, was like, okay, well, I'll bring in some bikes and help you out. We'll clear out what little he has there. Not taking into account the fact that A, he had stuff in reserves, B, Evan had stuff in reserves he could deep strike, and C, Alex could also redeploy stuff with site-to-site transport or teleport. And so that side of the table ended up becoming an absolute just charnel house of carnage as things start dropping in, fighting, long slogs back and forth. Richard saved my life because I was using his model version, and threw grenades at a kill team, which wiped out most of the kill team. So thank you, Richard.
Hooray.
If we're doing that, I think my favorite moment is when the Dennis model got to stand off against a Tyranid and punch it in the face and live.
I got targeted with an orbital bombardment.
You probably deserve it.
Yeah,
and just like the tech, or just like the mech, Kevin was the only one that got splatted.
Yep. It was basically somebody in the command post was like, "Oh yeah, that guy? Fuck that guy."
Yeah. And also, my side of the table was the side that the chitin came in on and proceeded to utterly demolish my repulsor in one set of attacks, as well it should.
Well, I remember when I walked by, I was thinking, man, that repulsor is really close to the edge. And so the chitin didn't have to do much. It just walked on and slashed.
Yeah, just walked up to it, smacked it aside, and it exploded. No, I don't think it exploded, but, it's like just utterly destroyed it. And then the chitin didn't get to do anything else because we then killed it with fire.
Oh, yeah. It was the big target.
Yes. In the end, Watchtower did win. I think we pretty much got the drop on them, and the score at the end was something like 9-4. It was relatively one-sided, but there was not much left of. Alex was tabled. Matthew was nearly tabled on our side. I think Seth had like one or two things left. Joseph had a few of his Space Wolves left. Yeah, because I think Seth had one or two of his tanks parked in the middle, so they survived most of the game. And my captain and a couple of Blade Guard were still alive. I did try Surgical Deep Strike with Dante and the Sanguinary Guard. Got the mishap. Like I think there were 3 models nearby and I rolled a 4, so that got me down to the 1. So mishap, and got the mishap where you take some mortal wounds and then you have to redeploy somewhere else. You have to attempt another surgical deep strike 12 inches away from where no closer than 12 inches away from where you were. So I was able to drop down, weather some fire from Tank Bustas, and then murder the Tank Bustas. But he ended up killing me with the Big Mech with shock attack gun in melee.
I love that model.
Yeah, it's a fantastic model. So again, a large bloody game with hardly anything left on the table at the end. But
those are the good ones.
Those are the good ones.
Yeah, and that kind of seems like how the other 2 games went as well. Like they were all just like bloody nightmare, like fighting. So, which is what you wanted. So I was glad it worked out exactly as well as we wanted.
Yeah. So yeah, in the end, when it came down to it, you said it was pretty much a draw between the, when you work all the various point systems together, it was pretty much a draw. But we did have winners for most heroic, most villainous, and best hobbyist. Our most heroic went to TJ Weinog, who last year won most villainous. Yeah.
So he now has both. He has both plaques now, which is good.
Right. And so I told him that he has to go for most neutral next year to get the hat trick.
I have no strong feelings one way or the other.
Exactly. Most villainous went to Ethan Newman with the Rogaldorn Heavy Astra Militarum list.
The last mission was made for him.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it was that your warlord needed to kill other character units. And
I think the Rogaldorn can handle that.
Yeah. I think he killed 6 character units or something outrageous. Yeah. And the fact that we had all the command assists available, there were plenty of characters to go hunt.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then I believe for a second year in the row, Torin Finkmeyer, who's another one of our patrons, won with his absolutely wonderfully painted Walmart orcs.
It was just cute. I loved it.
I mean, he had a fantastic display board, and Torin always has like these wonderfully brightly, like almost painfully brightly painted orcs, but painted very well in almost a cell shaded style, not exactly, but very close to it.
And I will say I loved his Bad Moon Flyer, aka he took a Necron flyer, put it on its side so it looked like a moon, and yeah, I mean, that was just clever. I loved it.
Yeah, absolutely deserved for that reward. Although I am a bit hurt because he came up and he looked over my army and he's like, I would vote for you, but I can't vote for Blood Angels. I'm like, oh, ow, that seems personal.
I mean, yeah, that checks out.
That tracks. Moving over to the GT side, we didn't play in the GT, obviously, but do want to talk about the results there, which I thought was interesting and something we've been seeing pop up. If you follow Goonhammer's competitive developments articles, they've been tracking what's been going on since the new Death Guard Codex became legal. And yeah, 3 Death Guard in the top 8, including first and second at Midwest Conquest. Both playing, I believe, Virulent Victorum.
Yep.
Slightly different builds, both strong lists, and I
think they both went undefeated. Yeah,
they both went undefeated. Yeah. It came down to points. Congratulations to Sam Anderson for he ended up taking best overall, which was our top spot, with scores of 88, 88, 100, 100, 100. His games got better as the competition got harder.
Yeah. It was impressive.
Yeah. Luke Peacock came in second, but ended up getting the first place because Sam got best overall. Luke Peacock with a similar but slightly different list, because I believe Sam did not have Mortarion. Luke did.
Yeah.
And there's, some variation. They're both good lists, and you'll see Death Guard popping up a lot competitively right now. We'll see what happens when the balanced data slate hits, if it's going to be considered too soon to apply data, but they're doing very well. Editor Rob here. It was, in fact, too soon. No changes for Death Guard in the balanced data slate. But congratulations to both of them. Third place, I thought was interesting. Cody Giroux with Drukhari, specifically the Grotmist detachment, the Reaper's Wager.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yes. He only lost one game, and that's the only game he lost. He dropped points in. 100, 100, 54, 100, 100.
That is some impressive work.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And I believe it was, round 3 was where he lost one game. Otherwise, absolutely cleaned up. But yeah, with Archon, Beastmaster, with a Claude Fiend, 2 Chimerae, and 3 Razor Wings. Actually, 3 Beastmasters, all set up equivalent, identically. Unit of Kabalite Warriors with a Shredder, Splinter Cannon, and Dark Lance. Unit of Rax. A Court of the Archon. 2 Chronos, some Grotesques, Mandrakes, 2 units of Mandrakes. 3 units of Scourges with Dark Lances. 2 Talos, and then a Shadow Sphere and a troop of lead player, and I think a full, and then 10 players, so 11 in the troop, and piloted that to a nearly perfect run. The others in the top 8, Connor Tucker with Adeptus Custodes, Dick Johnson with Space Marines, playing a Gladius Task Force list. Tyler Schreck with Adeptus Sororitas, again, only dropping one game. These were all 4-1 runs. Tyler Sims playing Deathwatch, and then Joe Norman with a Champions of Contagion Death Guard list, round out the top 8. I was surprised to see that much Death Guard in the top 8, and especially in the top 3. Although I would say Drukhari was the big surprise for me, seeing that top 3. But other than Death Guard, I think and whether it's that Death Guard are a little pushed right now, or it's just people haven't adjusted to them being in the meta yet, which could absolutely be the case. Honestly, a pretty good range, like Death Guard, Drukhari, Custodes, Space Marines, Sororitas, Deathwatch, going into the top 12, more Custodes, more Stardies, Space Wolves, and Necrons, with World Eaters coming in at 13, Tau at 14. A pretty good spread of armies. I think once we figure out what happens with Death Guard, and then we'll see what happens when Thousand Suns hit competitively.
I think they'll be good.
Yeah.
I'll say my disappointment, Rob, there was only one Votann player. We need more Votann out there.
Yeah.
Votann's in a weird spot, because they're still an index army.
I know.
Although so is Drukhari, and they're doing okay.
Yeah, well, the problem with Votann that I see it now is you have to play Killy, because they do not have enough movement shenanigans to handle objectives like other armies do.
Right.
So, I mean, I guess you can with the Pioneers, but they are so fragile if the opponent knows that that's your only thing that can move around. And once they kill them, they're like, yeah, enjoy your either vehicle heavy or your 5-inch movement.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. I would
and
like to see more Votann. Just people get out there, play.
I thought it was very interesting, though, because it does seem like it kind of lines up with some of the other events that were happening at the same time. I was kind of keeping an eye on the US Open. So, like, yeah, Death Guard is in a really good spot right now. But I think in that tier below Death Guard, there's a lot of different armies that really seem like any of them can win. So I think, obviously, like, there's still some tweaks need to be made at the top. Maybe tone Death Guard down a little bit. Boost armies like Votann and Sisters, stuff like that are still a little bit towards the bottom. Maybe, bump them back up a little bit. But, like, overall, I think competitive 40K is in a pretty good spot right now. It seems like there's a lot of variety.
I'll say the weird statement. I don't know that Votann need buffed. I think they're probably also going to hold off until we get a Codex, which I'm hoping maybe might be fourth quarter, but might be first quarter next year. We don't know. Yeah. It's in the future.
At some people's point.
So looking at the Dallas US Open, it was actually Ultramarines Gladius Task Force that won.
Oh, okay.
Eldari Devoted of Aeneid in second. World Eaters Berserker Warband in third. Death Guard did come in fourth with a Virulent Vectorium. And then the rest of the top 8, Adeptus Sororitas, Hallowed Martyrs, Necrons Awakened Dynasty with a Warrior Brick. Another Gladius Task Force in 7th. And Death Guard Mortarian's Hammer, played by Don Huson, who's from the Phoenix area.
Yeah, he's a Phoenix local guy, and he's a huge Death Guard player. Like he's
right. He's been for years.
He's so it doesn't surprise me that he came in with a kind of sideways, like not exactly the meta list, but yeah, he's a really good player. He really knows Death Guard.
Yeah, which I think the fact that you're seeing not one Virulent Victorium build, you're not seeing just Virulent Victorium doing well, indicates that Death Guard themselves may be just across the board, maybe a little bit too strong on a couple of units. I imagine they'll probably try adjusting points first before they do any massive army changes. Because like with Virulent Victorium, you've got so many characters that you can bounce around that have good abilities that I would not be surprised if we see point bumps and maybe some stratagem updates on them just to kind of like tone them down a bit.
I don't like stratagems updates. My sister.
I know, but yeah. But these were not the only awards given. We don't have the full list of all the best in faction. There were a ton of best in faction awards given away. But one I definitely do want to mention was best painted. I actually entered in, even though I wasn't in the GT, I did enter the best painted. No, I didn't win. That's, I'm not here for that. To discuss that. I am here to, I don't feel bad about my army. I thought my army looked very good, but I do want to give a shout out to Duncan Whiting, who brought an Astra Militarum army that looked absolutely beautiful.
Yes, it was very good. It had some neat little conversion and green stuff work done in it. It was beautifully painted, very thematically well unified army look. That it was a tough judging this year, because me and Kevin split the room, and I started one end, he started at the other, and we met at the middle, and with around 80 participants, we each tried to pick 4 out of what we did for the top 8, and I think I had from my half 8 that I wanted.
Yeah.
And you had I think 6 that you had picked out.
Yeah, I think I had 6 total that was things are good enough to be considered, and then we kind of scaled it down from there and went through the whole process. But it was really, really good competition.
We ended up, I think, technically with a 3-way tie.
Yeah.
With the top scores, and had to break that, deciding on Duncan's army.
But yeah, it was really impressive. There was a lot of really great paint jobs this year.
Yeah, like looking at his army, and I've got pictures of it that I will post, but that just the amount, like, he had, not only did he have like the conversions and like the consistent theming, there was also like wonderfully weathered in a very well done way. It didn't just look messy. Like the weathering was all felt authentic. So like that, getting weathering where it doesn't just look like dirty, but looking like dirt caked into areas where it would just accumulate, chipping where things should chip properly. That's an art, and Duncan did a very good job of it.
Yeah,
and I think I heard from someone that this was his first GT. Like this was his first large tournament, and so what a way to come home with that, because he also took Best in Faction Astra Militarum. So
right.
Yeah, what a way to come away from your first event. Hopefully we'll see him again. And also, speaking of things that were painted, we did have the Eldari Raffle Army, which I finished with like 2 days to spare. I think that's the most time I've had between finishing the army and event day, so I feel good about that.
And then I'll just add this, Rob, it did look phenomenal, so you did a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, it did.
I had a moment of panic on Wednesday because I had extra time. And so I'm like, you know what? I've got time. I've got these painted, but I'm going to put some decals on them. Like I wanted to have the infinity symbols on the Wraith Lord and Wraithguard heads. And I wanted to, there were 3 jet bikes that had scatter lasers and 3 that had shuriken cannons. And I wanted to make sure that's like, hey, at a glance, without having to look underneath the bike, you could tell which one was which. And I'm like, okay, so I'll use this same Han decal for one set and this same HAL decal for the other set. So I did what I would normally do. I put down some like gloss varnish to get a nice smooth layer over where I'm going to put the decal, and then I'll put the decal down, and then I'll put a layer, I'll spray my normal varnish, my matte varnish, over all the models, and that'll seal it in to, so it's protected. What I didn't take into account was we'd had rain the last couple of days beforehand, and so the basement where I work was just slightly humid. Not terribly, but just slightly. And just slightly humid enough that when I applied the matte varnish, it frosted the areas where the gloss varnish was. And I'm like, oh no, I have just destroyed the paint jobs on 6 jet bikes that have to be turned in for a raffle in 2 days. I tried applying a little bit more varnish once things had dried out, which sometimes works. It did not in this case. So I hand painted a layer of matte varnish over the particular areas, and then I brought in the base coat paint that I had underneath the decals, and I very carefully painted around over the frosted section with that base coat paint, and then resealed it with the matte paint, and you couldn't tell. Like I got it fixed to the where you couldn't tell it had frosted. But that's probably like I've had models, the one time in the past I've had models frost on me and ruin a paint job. It broke my heart. It was some Malifaux models. I was really happy with how they turned out. And I made the mistake of back then using tester spray paint outside in the evening when the humidity had spiked. And they looked like they were in a winter wonderland, and it broke my heart. And so this time I almost did that again. But I was able to salvage them. So yeah, I know I was really happy with how the army looked. I'm also very happy with how much we raised with the army, which was $1,117.
Yes,
nice.
Which was fantastic.
Yeah, for the Veterans Community Project, which makes tiny homes for veterans, and for the KU Cancer Center to help them provide like transportation services and things like that for people who might not otherwise be able to access oncological care. So a couple of great causes. Got a hug from the guy that that won the army. I've gotten handshakes before. I've never gotten a hug. And he said they were both causes that were close to his heart too. So that was That was awesome. And in fact, I threw down the gauntlet to the crowd on day one of the event and said that if we raised $1,000, I would paint a vehicle of their choice. Just they get me the model, and I would paint it. If we made 1,500, I would buy the vehicle. And so we did break the 1,000. And so he had me shipped a Fire Prism / Night Spinner kit. He's asked me to magnetize it so you can have either option.
Oh, nice.
We've hashed out the like how he wants it painted. It arrived like late Friday, so starting on Monday, I'm going to start working on getting that knocked out so I can send it off to him. But it's been a fun project, and I was absolutely glad to take part in it. And this is I think I counted, this is the 9th army project I've done for charity. And when I think about how many armies I've painted, and over half of them I don't get to keep, but that's okay because they go to people in exchange for raising money for good causes. So
right.
I'm super happy that we raised so much. I don't know if that is the most we've raised, but it's definitely in the top 3. I want to say one year we may have hit like 1,200, but
I don't. I'd have to go back and look each year, but every time we've done this, we've gotten a fantastic response. So
right,
that's why we keep doing it.
Yes, and I have heard rumors that besides having a raffle army, which I will be working on next year, we may have a Titan up for raffle.
Yes.
So watch this space. Also watch this space for any announcements about Midwest Conquest. There is a possibility that our location will be changing. So we will let you know as soon as we know where 2026 is going to be held. I absolutely want 2026 to happen because it will be the 10th anniversary of Midwest Conquest 1.
Well, I think, Rob, moving's normal. I mean, LVO moved and Adepticon moved, right? So
yeah.
I mean...
Yeah. Show Me Showdown moved. We ran into Nathan Martin at the event, and he announced that Show Me Showdown, which did not happen last year due to the venue basically selling his slot out from under him at the time, and he wasn't able to get a new event space together on short notice, has partnered with Meeplethon here in the Kansas City area, which is in November. It's the second weekend of November, I believe, and he basically has a permanent home with them now as part of their convention. So Show Me Showdown will be a 160-person tournament at Meeplethon on, I think it's November 12th through 14th.
And I believe it's at the Overland Park Convention Center.
Yes.
Which, that is a fabulous location. It's great for like small convention type things, because I've been there a few times, and it's probably a good home for them.
Absolutely.
Okay, so November 14th through 16th at Meeplethon. And yes, that is at the Overland Park Convention Center, which is a huge convention center just off 435. It's where NakaCon is held now, which is big anime convention in KC. So it's a very large space. Granted, this is going to be an entire convention with board gaming, role playing, and now a 160-person super major tournament, as well as an Age of Sigmar major tournament. If you get a chance, Nathan always runs a top tier event, and he's a fantastically wonderful guy. So I do not really do competitive play anymore. I may try to attend. I wonder if I should contact him and see if he wants to have a narrative event. I don't know. I could. I'm not asking you to. You guys are going to be busy because I believe that's the weekend or just
the weekend after
the grand narrative. Yeah, you guys are going to be tapped out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's awesome that event is back on as well. And that's everything. Do we want to talk about our personal games from Friday?
Sure.
Yeah, we can.
I could talk about the horrible things I did to Dennis or the horrible things I did to Kevin. Which would you like me to start with?
Well, I could also. Yeah, so you can start with my game because for context, every year since we're scattered about, each year at Midwest Conquest, the four of us try to get together to play some games between us and just see how we do. And so, I got to play Rob and Richard, and Rob played me and Kevin. So, it's our little one-timers.
And we used bunker missions from White Dwarf.
Yes, those are interesting.
went through and looked at, you kind of vetted the missions, Dennis, to decide which ones you felt were,
I didn't like.
which ones you felt you wanted, were more worth juggling than others. The mission that you and I played was interesting in that there were 6 deployment zones that were like 12-inch by 12-inch, and you ended up being the attacker. Or no, I ended up being the attacker. So I picked one, then you picked 2. Or no, was I the defender?
You picked one. No, I picked one, then you picked 2.
Right.
And I picked one of the middle ones to try and force you to see where you'd go, and then you still cornered me. So
yeah, I basically picked one directly in front of you and one to the side of you, and you were wide open on the side, especially. Yeah. And I believe I got first turn on you as well.
Yes, which was the big thing.
I think that was what made the big difference. Because on one side I had like my Outrider bikes and the Lancer and I believe the Ballistus Dread, and then that was the one kind of like on your flank, and then directly in front of you I had everything else that wasn't in Deep Strike, and including like my Repulsor and my Brutalis Dread and Mephiston and the Assault Intercessors, and and you were playing Wind Rider Host, all jet bikes and Vipers, and a couple of Fire Prisms.
2 Fire Prisms, 2 Vipers, and then everything else was just a jet bike. In 5 squads, 3 of the squads led by the Warlocks and Farseer. And I thought, this mission also allowed you to put anything in strategic reserves, and they could come in, and had I thought about it more, they could come in from any board edge except for your opponent's deployment zone board edges.
Mm-hmm.
Had I put more in reserve, I could have spread out, which is what I really needed to do against you, but I didn't want to have so little on the board, so it was like, don't know. So yeah, my deployment zones were just packed, which, as you would probably say, they were target-rich environments for your guns on the top of one.
Yes, yeah, because I did have a squad of regular intercessors with bolt rifles, and I had to be careful though because you had 3 large like jet bike blobs with like a Farseer and a pair of Warlocks in each. And with all that destructor like torrent fire,
it was only two guys. The 2 Warlocks were the only guys that fired the destructor.
Right, but I still had to like watch what I couldn't just charge in blithely.
You should have. You should have. Destructor would have been very happy if you did that.
Oh yeah, which is why I didn't. Which is why I tried to whittle you down with firepower as much as I could. And I think one thing that helped was first turn, I managed to kill like a unit of Shroud Runners that you had kind of placed a bit forward.
Yeah, I placed them forward because I had too much in my deployment zones, and I thought, well, Shroud Runners can scout, so I'll have them move backwards. And, well, still with you going first, they weren't backwards enough.
Right. And they were like sitting like right on top of buildings where I could see them. And
well, I can't go inside of buildings because I'm not infantry.
True. So, yeah, in that one, I basically just pushed up, thinned things out, and I just kept the pressure on you that entire game.
Yeah. There's really not much I can say from my side except I made Mephiston useless. I don't think he absorbed 1 unit or 1 firing of Overwatch, and then he just ran around and
he didn't really. Yeah, Mephiston is like one of these. Either he's an absolute terror or he does nothing. Whether it's just
so who was the one that does is that not Dante? Who did the deep strike after me?
Sanguinor.
That was the other well played thing, which Sanguinor I hate now. Because I deep striked in something to try and like kill his Brutalis. And I made my charge. And then Sanguinor came down and said, "Hi, I'm charging you too." So Sanguinor has fights first. So he got to go before me, took out 2 of my 3 Shining Spears. The 3rd Shining Spear still fought the tank and did put 3 wounds on it, or the Brutalis, but yeah, that really wasn't enough. If I had had the whole squad, I think that Brutalis would have been dead.
Yeah, but Sanguinor coming in with fights first and like dev wounds on the attack, it's...
Oh, dev wounds didn't matter, but the fights first did.
The fights first made thinned your squad out enough.
Oh yes, so much.
No, Sanguinor is one of those. He's a great like charge deterrent.
Yep.
Yeah, having my opponent know that it's there. If you charge, no, I'm going to hit you first. The downside is he's actually really fragile. He's just got Marine stats with maybe like an extra wound or so.
He did his job. He came in, and thankfully for you, I didn't have anything in the area left to try and challenge him or shoot him or do anything because, well, that side of the board I was trying to clear you off of before I brought my people over.
But yeah, I think in that one, I ended up tabling you, I think, turn 4?
I think so.
Yeah, I think like bottom of 4.
No, it's either,
top of 4.
Probably not top of 5, maybe. Yeah, it's top of 4,
top of 5.
But
yeah, top 4, top 5.
Because you went first.
Right, yeah.
So me and Kevin's first game, he was playing World Eaters.
I'm shocked.
Surprise. And I put together a RoeTaKa orc list. And I was playing the new nerfed version, which still shot a lot.
Absolutely.
It was pretty much the deployment that killed me, and the fact that Kevin went first.
Yes. Those two things made a huge difference in that game.
You guys are welcome about the deployment, because I picked 8 missions that I thought looked interesting, and the mission I thought was most interesting was the one that Richard and Kevin got, because we rolled randomly.
That was the one where you had like 2 deployment zones each, and you randomly placed. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know me, I like random.
Yeah, deployment was the 4 corners, and we had opposite corners, so, the diagonals. And you would roll for each unit that you'd put down, then it determined which of the 2 deployments that it went into. Most of Richard's army went into deployment zone 1, so he had like 3 units that were on the other side of the table away from the rest of his army. And then I managed to deploy a little bit more evenly, so I was able to run over, and the deployment zones were also like, I think 12 inches apart, so it wasn't difficult for me to be able to move and charge, turn 1. Yeah, I kind of like wiped out did most of the damage to the smaller like detachment. I killed both Mega Knob units, top of 1, I believe, which was really like the only real melee, like counter melee that Richard had, like, or dedicated melee units. So
yeah, from
that point, it became just kind of weathering the fire, which I was only barely able to do. Like, it was still a lot of shots.
I mean, yeah, because eventually my primary deployment zone still had... I put the flash kits up top where they could see most of the board, but they didn't have the longest range. I had Ludas behind them, which had the longer range, but then had terrain that they couldn't exactly see through super well. But I didn't get a chance to really move a whole lot, and most of my stuff in my primary deployment zone was still there when we decided to call it.
Right.
Because you just had better movement left, and I couldn't have really gotten into a position to where I could cover any of the objectives in the middle of the table. So
yeah. But it was still a very fun game. Like,
yes.
I think it was like the first like 4 or 5 like shooting attacks and melee attacks were like just exactly enough to kill the unit that was being shot at with like no leftover wounds. It was actually kind of impressive. Very, very efficient. Very efficient murder.
And then, Kevin, you and I played, and we had a mission where, we are 2 assault armies, both in red, in hammer and anvil deployment, so we're having to run at each other the long way.
Yes.
And I believe that was also the mission where you added 1 to battle shock roll tests if you had a character in the unit. You subtracted 1 if you didn't have a character in the unit. And if your warlord died, everything had to take a battle shock test.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, I went first, and I was able to make 1 charge, I think. But I failed like 2 others. And that wasn't exactly like the game, but that really determined, not being able to get the first, those first turn charges really impacted and kind of changed the way the game is, because then I was close enough that you were able to counter assault. You brought in the Sanguinors after one of my units assaulted. Angron failed like a 6-inch charge and just stood on like a wall, where he became a giant target. that was probably where the game actually changed.
I think that failed charge from Angron is absolutely where the momentum turned, because you got a first charge early, and then because I was clearing out some of your 8-bound and exalted 8-bound early on, because I knew if they got into my lines, bad things would happen. Then you got a squad of like berserkers into my stuff and absolutely mauled me on turn 2. Like top of 2, I felt like I was in a bad spot, kind of on the back foot. And so bottom of 2, I'm kind of like consolidating back a little bit, trying to get out of easy assault ranges, trying to just pick off things with shooting. And then turn 3, you did another push. And Angron failing a charge and just being completely out of cover.
Yep. And
when I killed him, everything in your army had to take a battle shock test, and almost everything you had failed.
Yeah, that was really the big like turning point, because he died and then everything failed, and I basically lost that turn of being able to hold objectives. And like, I don't remember exactly what the final score was, but it was pretty close.
It was pretty close. Yeah. I think I ended up winning, but it was pretty close, because you had a squad of jackals like sitting on a back objective that I just was not going to be able to get to.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny because you're playing the Berserker Warband, I'm playing the Liberator Assault Group. We have the same ability as our detachment ability, +2 strength and +1 attack.
Yep.
But what I found interesting is that something I don't have an option for in like my assault intercessors that you do is the ability to take like eviscerators.
Yes.
Those with the +2 strength and extra attack. Oh my God, did those get work done? Because I want to say you absolutely eliminated my assault intercessors with that. Just absolutely destroyed them.
Eviscerators like are strength 10 on the charge. Yeah, strength 10 on the charge. 2 damage, so they are just murdering Marines.
Yeah,
but that's the problem, is you can only take a few of those, so it's like, you get 2 in a squad of 10, so it's like you're still limited on like how many attacks you can actually do with those and how much damage you can do. But yeah, it's very interesting to see how these very similar armies were different. I think the biggest thing that was different is you had a lot more shooting options than I did, because you had, and granted, like I could have probably taken shooting options, but you had a gladiator lancer.
Yeah,
was that the one?
Lancer.
Yeah, you had a lancer and then a repulsor that had just a ton of fire output that was able to do a lot of damage to me, in the shooting phase. Whereas I was basically just like, all right, shooting phase doesn't exist, let's advance. So it's just very interesting to see like how both armies play in those areas. I really like the new Berserker Warband. Like in the games that I played, because I played 3 games with it, the +2 strength, like in getting the charges off, like that's huge. That gives you, it basically makes Berserkers feel exactly the way they felt before. They're still doing a lot of damage from high strength attacks. I would still like to like have more damage than just one with the chain axe, but whatever. I didn't really miss advance and charge, even though I did fail some charges. What I think I missed most out of the old Berserker Warband was the feel no pain.
Yeah.
I would, you would basically, the way that I always played it, you would try to get the +2 movement and the advance and charge 1 if you could. And then after that, I would take lethal hits and feel no pain almost every other turn after that, because the feel no pain rolls were so good and kept things alive. In this one, I always was taking lethal and devastating wounds. That really just seemed like the 2 best options, which is really great because I was able to kill big things and dump devastating wounds into things. But yeah, not having the feel no pain really hurt at times. Makes the army a lot less resilient, which is probably good, because they probably don't need to be as resilient as like Death Guard or something else. But overall, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I honestly think if you had access to feel no pain, you may very well have won that game.
Yes.
Because I think Angron would have survived that. Because Angron ended up, like, I took wounds off of him with the Lancer and I think the Ballistus, and then he died to bolter fire, pulled off the last couple of wounds. And if you had been able to shrug off even some of the damage before that, I would have been much harder pressed to finish him off. And then I think it would have been a different game.
Yeah, for sure. But no, it was very fun. You know, even the game that I played against Daniel in the narrative, where it's like I was just running into, you know, flamers. That's another place where it's like, okay, Feel No Pain would have been potentially good there, because not only was it flamers, he had an Infernal Master in one of the squads that was doing mortal wounds in Overwatch. So it was like, okay, if I had the ability to shrug some of those off, it would have gotten a lot different. But yeah, I like World Eaters. I still think they're very good. I still think they play exactly the way that you want them to play. I was very happy with it.
Okay, I guess on the other side, Richard and I got the mission that you had been talking up to me, Rob, the wormhole shooting objectives.
Yes.
So we had a Windrider host, which I like to do lots of shooting with it, and the DACA that likes to do lots of shooting. So it was going to be very interesting.
We shot lots.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Both of us were picking up massive amounts of dice. I think both of us realized that we were glass cannons, because I think, Richard, you would shoot at one of my units, get rid of like 6 of the jet bikes or something outrageous. Then I'd say, okay, that unit must die. And I retaliated and would kill your unit back.
Yeah. It felt like after I shot with a unit, you were like, okay, I don't like that unit now.
Well, you did, Dan. You took out so much of my stuff. I had to retaliate.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want that unit shooting again, because once I got into range, they were rough. And yeah, at one point we had the wormhole open up on Richard's left side and to my center point. And I think, Richard, you just moved all your units close by that. So you just unleashed everything and killed everything that was on that point, except for the fire prism, I guess, lived.
Yeah.
That was, I guess, one difference between the two games is Rob got rid of both fire prisms. In the game with Richard, both fire prisms were able to live because, well, they weren't as squishy as the jet bikes, which were just dying to his shots.
Yeah.
Well, maybe also I took out your rocket launcher guys early, too.
Yeah. The tank busters and the flash gits were like kind of the first 2 units that you were decided had to die. And you pretty much, as soon as you decided that they should die, they died. And then I kind of got Ludas in range into position to fire and showed you how many shots they had.
It was scary, by the way.
Yeah. And then you were like, okay, those need to die. And then they died. Because the biggest thing about the Ludas, I think, did do the most work during that game for me because they had rerolls to hit. Normally it's just ones, but if you were on an objective...
Oh gosh, and I was standing
then
on
you
so many people on
reroll all the
objectives.
hits. And a couple of your units, I could only hit on 6s anyway. So yeah, I got lots of rerolls, which translated into lots of hits and sustained hits.
Yeah, and not just that. Yeah, this is the WA. Yeah, the WA gives you sustained. And
yeah,
that was a very, very, very painful turn because you had to hit me on a 6, but when you did, oh my gosh. And I think one of those times it felt like you had like 13 6s or something. I mean, true, you were rolling like 36 dice or something, but...
Right. So... And I think by the end of that game, I had kind of figured out that there was stratagems that I should be using more, and that may have tipped it. Like, it was a really close game.
Yeah, I'll toss in a couple extra things. Richard learned that Destructor was bad, except for the time when I moved my guys thinking, oh, he's got a squad of 4 over on that point. Yeah, let me just fly over there, get that. Yeah, I did nothing. Because those were Mega Knobs, and Mega Knobs don't care about my Destructor. And
no, they don't.
And then the Mega Knobs ate that squad, and it was, well, except I think the Farseer was able to get away.
Yeah.
And then Kevin, I sent both of my Shining Spears squads down. I think, Richard, they both failed their charges, right?
Yeah, I think so, yes.
Yeah. And so Richard was able to assault both of them, took one of the squads out, did not kill the other squad, and then I made him pay because the lone guy that was left, he took out all 4 guys that were surrounding him. Were those just regular knobs?
Yeah, those were just regular knobs with like close. They had close combat weapons, so that was it. Their shooting was again that was kind of the focus of that small unit because they had combi weapons, which again really weren't for your list because they have like anti-infantry.
And I had 0
devastating
infantry
wounds. So like your list didn't particularly care about the shooting that they did.
But yeah, no, it was very, very back and forth. I think what helped me out was when the portals shifted and they weren't all around Richard's big mob of every gun known to orc kind.
Yeah.
Because then he didn't shoot me as much because there were walls in the way. So I think, did I pull it out of the end, Richard? It was so close that I don't remember.
Yeah,
okay.
It was very close. It was like 1 or 2 points. I don't remember exactly, but
everything was dying, slobber knocker.
Yeah, I realized that 2 of the stratagems that I had that I really should have been using more during the game, because I had completely ignored them during Kevin's game because they really didn't do me any good in the game against Kevin, because there was you shot me and killed some models, so now I'm going to shoot back at you.
Yep.
That would have been a stratagem that
I wouldn't have liked.
Would have helped me shoot even more.
Yep.
And then there was the stratagem that lets me treat a unit as though like I had called a WA for that unit.
God. You didn't need any more sustain after that WA turn.
Yeah.
So yes, as I know, if Richard had had both of those, it might have swung in his favor unless I could make saves better. But man, that so much shooting. That is still a great detachment, even with the nerfs that they put on it. It was solid, Richard.
Yeah, and that game ran late. You guys were wrapping up.
10:30? We played like 4 hours, I think.
Yeah, it was a long game.
We both were throwing buckets of dice.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, while you guys were finishing that up, and Kevin, you had gone home because you were
sick.
You were not feeling well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was playing with Bryce, Daniel, and Curtis. Not playing 40K. We were playing Commander. I got in a game of Commander with them. Whew, that game. I played my absolute pure chaos deck, which is all dice rolling and coin flipping. So I have no idea what's going to happen with that game.
It sounds like heresy. You've got chaos.
Yeah. To the point where I don't even know exactly which commander I'm going to be playing because there are 4 possible setups and I roll a d4 at the beginning of the game to figure out who I'm going to play as and shuffle everybody else into the 99. I almost pulled that one off, but Curtis was playing this insane life game deck. I mean, he was gaining life just from his commander being in the command zone, so I think he played his commander once and then he died and it's like, oh well, I guess he'll just go back to gaining me life now. But we had him beat down to 6 points, 6 life left, and then he rebuilt in a mad dash to over 50 and then proceeded to Aetherflux Reservoir me away from the game and ended up pulling off the win. But great game with those guys. I would love to play more Commander with patrons the next time we get people together at one of these events. So it was a lot of fun. So again, thank you guys. Daniel, also one of our patrons, and I know he and his group got in a game with TJ as well. So if you are interested in being part of that community, you can join us on Patreon at patreon.com/preferredenemies and join the Preferred Frenemies club, where you gain access to our Discord, access to our Urban Conquest updated mission pack, and we've got communities for painting, playing, random chat. We've got stuff for card games, stuff for talking about Age of Sigmar and Old World. So if you want to be part of that community, we would love to have you. And it's basically $1 a month. We don't lock any of our episodes behind a paywall. And it helps pay for things like our recording service and hosting. And you help keep us income neutral. So we really love the support we get from everyone. We love having everybody in this community. So if you want to have access to our Discord, again, patreon.com/preferredenemies, $1 a month. But if enough people put in $1, it adds up and really helps out. Also, we have our merch store at preferredenemies.com/merch. And we have our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@preferredenemies, I believe, where we do video versions of all of our audio episodes. So if you want to follow us, subscribe, comment, all those good things, help support us in our fight against the algorithm. But I believe that wraps up our coverage of Midwest Conquest 2025. I think that's everything.
Yep. Nice and quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, we are looking to do Midwest Conquest again next year. We will let you know. So watch MidwestConquest.com for updates. Listen to the podcast for updates. We will keep everyone informed as plans get finalized for 2026. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with an episode. I believe we'll be covering the New Crusade Armageddon book, which would have been talked about the last couple of weeks, but it came out went up for pre-order the same weekend as Space Wolves, and we had Space Wolves to cover along with the mission deck and all the other stuff they released at the same time. So we'll get back to that next episode. But until then, from all of us here at Preferred Enemies, I'm your host, Rob.
Kevin.
Dennis.
And Richard.
Good night, good gaming, and we hope to see you again in Kansas City in 2026 for Midwest Conquest.